All right. Tonight I want to discuss technology and medical health. Now, the reason for this is that there are some great technological advances uh, that could treat a multiple number of issues, health issues. For instance, lung cancer. There's a way to treat lung cancer, and it's basically doesn't include transplants, organ transplants. What it is is taking a uh, a scan of your lung, but it's understand that your lung has a structure to it. Like when you're building a house, you build a frame first. Well, there's a frame for your lung, as well as the heart, your kidneys, your liver. Every organ has a superstructure. So we have technology. We've had it for quite some time, but now we can utilize it to scan and take the superstructure, uh, a a digital. We can get a digital mock-up of your superstructure, and with carbon printing, which is basically it works a lot like a printer that you use at your home, but instead of using ink, what we're using is a graphite or a nanocarbon, and basically you put that in, and you can build up that superstructure. Now, what happens is once you have that superstructure, you can put it in a bioflurry, basically somewhat like when you're in when you're first born and you're in the uterus, a mother's uterus, and what you so there's a fluid in there. So that's what I'm talking about. And so what ends up happening is you can put it into a shallow fluid container, and then drop your very own DNA. So you can take the proteins and enzymes that is necessary, and you can drop it. And what it does is it binds to the superstructure, rebuilding your lung. So that way there's no rejection. And you can take your old lung. If you have lung cancer, you take an old lung, take it out, put a new lung, which is yours because it's made from your DNA. So there's no rejection. You don't have to buy. You don't have to be treated with anti-rejection and stuff like that. You can do the same thing with the heart, liver, and all those other stuff. Now, diabetes could be solved. I think it could be solved by taking the organ, which controls and sends the proper enzymes to to your body, so that you get natural insulin. And so these are ways to treat. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, we know that medical costs is ridiculous. And the reason why medical costs are ridiculous is because such things as having to, using someone else, some other person's heart or lung. It's and therefore, you get that you have to you get that, and then you have to go through a rigorous treatment, and you're constantly monitored. This is why. This is why. This and also transportation costs and all that other stuff. There's a lot of excess expenditure and predatoriness, predatory behavior, and so why do that when you can actually build a brand new lung or heart, liver, kidney, what have you? You could even rebuild your own. You could even rebuild your a new stomach, new intestines, all that other stuff. So it it makes no sense to be using that. And so I just wanted to cover this because it goes to show how truly malevolent and predatory people are. Those who have wealth, they're always just like how Purdue Pharma and Johnson and various other companies that were either distributors, which is basically the middleman, and producers and then the insurance companies and all that. How they create a problem, and because they're supposed to be legitimate, and we assume that there's no malicious intent behind it, and the intent that's malicious is to make a profit. It doesn't matter whether or not it's gonna harm you or kill you, or and or bankrupt you. So, I have very different ideas on how medicine and health treatments should be done. And I'm not one for I research this sort of stuff, and and I pay close attention to a variety of things. If you've seen enough of my videos, you know that there's a unique way that I look at things and come up with things, and the reason for that is because I am looking to enhance our existence, and there is no profit motive. It is because I want to contribute to the community. So I look into the stuff like this. You've heard if you've watched some of my videos, you've heard me talk about physics and science. I'm not sure if I did a video on engineering and composite fabrication and all that other stuff. So the point is that I use my imagination, my innovation, my intuition, and all that, It's not because I want to make money. It's because I want to build a more equal, better society which enhances our existence so that we can strive for actual life. And so this is just another example. And this is the way sort of thinking we all need. You know, you don't hear about this a lot in the media. They may it may pop up, but it's not something that they continuously. It's something that they should be continuously talking about, but they don't talk about these sort of things. And when it does come out, it's usually like it might come up in the Science Channel. It might come up on one of those Discovery channels. It might come up in on one of those PBS channels. It's a specialized program, but we should be talk. This sort of thing should be talked about on the mainstream, on the mass media. It should be discussed, and this is why mass media is propaganda. It's a lie, and politicians. These are the sort of things that politicians should be talking about, and working policy to make it available cheaply and wisely. So this is why Bernie Sanders should be the candidate. This is why we should have people like we should want to push for people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, because she's very. If you watched one of her first interviews, which is on TYT, she's thinking of the future, because she's talked about elements of science and futurism. So we want people like that in office. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. They all they may not be like me, thinking in a multifaceted way. They may not be able to cobble together things things and hints they have seen. And like, I'll give you an example. There are some doctors who have come to realize that veterinary doctors are innovating in things that can actually be applied to human medical health. But you don't really hear about that, and if you do, you hear about it once, and that's it. And so this is a sort of thing we should want in our in our elected representatives. That veterinary medicine that can be applied to human medicine, for instance. So, so to give you a more concrete sense, I'll tell you about it. So there was a veterinary doctor who was trying to who worked for a lot of years on taking care of animals who had like they had the spine had broken, and they had lost the use of their rear legs. And so the veterinary doctor, he produced, researched it, and so on and so forth, and he came up with a bioglue, which basically what he did was he went to the affected spine, and he used his bioglue to create a bridge so that the nerve synaptic nerves in the animal could have a bridge to carry over the necessary proteins and enzymes and cells so that it could reconnect. Think of it as you have you have a wire. It's been cut, right? And you want to make repairs. So what do? You open up the casing, and then you tie in. And you end up tying in the broken ends, and then you just rewrap it, right? Well, it's kind of like that, but you can't do that with the with the spinal cord, and so you need a bridge. You need material that your body that the body naturally can send material to fix it, and so it worked. And dogs that had their spines broken or crushed, it was fixed. And there are, dogs that had their spinal cord snapped. So that's a sort of innovation I'm talking about. Now I also put in something else. The U.S. Army developed a carbon nanofilament spewer. Basically, it takes carbon from the atmosphere and carbon atoms from the atmosphere, puts and basically sucks it through, and then carbon has this interesting aspect where it actually doesn't need any impetus. You just put it closely together, and carbon will join together by itself. There's no you don't have to add energy to it or anything like that. And carbon nanofilaments look somewhat like spiderweb, but it is smaller. It's smaller than a human hair, smaller than spider or spider web, or so. But it's stronger, and it has more elasticity. So strength and elasticity is called tensile. So it's got greater tensile strength. So, and the thing about carbon nanofilaments is that it's great for making a bridge, and because we're made, much of us is made of carbon. It's a great conductor for the body to send the necessary things to make repairs. You could also make carbon ceramics, industrial carbon ceramics, and you could take a scan of the spine, and you could make the housing of the spine. So if you have a crushed spine, you can take the parts that are crushed, you can take it out, put new ones in, and you can make the cartilage. You could grow the cartilage and apply it while you put the new pieces together. At the same time, you could lay down the you could use a combination of that bioglue and the carbon nanofilaments, and you could make a bridge. And the thing is that bioglue and the carbon nanofilaments, you don't have to go back in and take it out because it will naturally be absorbed into the body. And so these are the sort of things that we should be hearing in our from our doctors. We should be seeing in our media, and these are the sort of things that that an elected representative sh- uh, should be aware of, and have, they don't necessarily need to have training, because I only graduated from high school, but I pay attention to these sort of things, and I come up with and I uh, go through many ways. Like, I can put together things that are not, like, veterinary medicine and health medicine. It's still medicine working with living things, but I have taken stuff from, say, like, from architectural engineering, and something that has to do with in another field, chemical, or electronics, and I can see, or from physics, and I can see or come up with concepts on how to put it together to and make it into into something that's going to enhance our existence, make our make our existence better, thereby enhancing natural life and nature, and nature. So these are the sort of things, and if we had proper education, and if the education wasn't biased through defunding, or through super ego, or wanting to have fame and stuff like that, and people that do research and come up with this creativity and ingenuity and all that other stuff, we would have a much better world. We would be enhancing the natural world, and we wouldn't be having so-called scientists creating monstrous things like Monsanto's glyphosate. Uh, they would they would they wouldn't take money, or take a job, because they would understand the catastrophic impacts. They wouldn't compromise. So the whole point is that if we have the proper knowledge, and we develop innovation, and we show examples like I've done in this video, there is nothing that we can't tackle. And but and it will correct our our perception, which is beyond insane. It doesn't border insanity. It is insane. If we could correct our perceptions and build a more sane, natural society, which enhances. This is why I'm a big believer in education. This is also why I back Bernie. Uh, you know, uh, Bernie Bernie's a great is a good guy, but he doesn't he lacks he lacks he lacks a more progressive and innovative element of thinking because uh, he's for all the good he is, he's still a politician, and so it's in politics. In my opinion, politics is all about having. It's all about combat. It's all about compromise. It's all about narrowing the mind, the emotion, and intellect, and basically it means chipping away at spirit, which is a combination of body, mind, and emotion. So, what I want for us is representation. People who naturally gravitate, and uh, and I and unfortunately, uh, uh, I have what I think the way I do. I have what I have because of my early life and the traumas I faced. Thereby, I can be empathetic and compassionate, and I'm constantly looking for ways to enhance our existence, to make a better world so that we can actually have a life. And that's what we need. You don't necessarily need to have traumatic trauma in your life, because there are people who don't have it but have have a sense of empathy and compassion, which comes more naturally to them. And the problem with the society we live in is that is being demolished. Uh, it is being eroded and crushed. So, anyways, I'm digressing and going way off topic. So that's the end of it. Think about it, and also when you're talking to family and friends, talk about what I talked about how we could have better medicine by ways of, like how I talked about carbon using carbon printing, and to create carbon printing, and using our own genetic material to create an exact copy of our organs, and basically building up, getting a new organ, and so on and so forth. Talk about that. Talk about how the vet created a bio glue to solve spinal cord injuries, that sort of stuff, and how and talk about how part of the reason we have the costs is because there are clear solutions and pathways, yet it takes out the greed and excess exorbitant excess cost by not being able to market the anti-rejection drugs, which you basically have to take, and you have to go into the hospital on a regular basis. So these are the sort of things we need to make ourselves aware of. So get that out. You know, like I just talked to you about getting out the information on my plans to build a whole new energy infrastructure and utilizing methane produced without the destructive poisoning process and excessive cost the way they do now with fracking, which they call the methane that they draw up natural gas. If you watch my videos on that, you know my plans and so on and so forth. So this is what I mean about innovation. You know, and I don't, and I pay, as you can tell, I pay attention to societal issues, political issues, foreign policy, religion. This is the way I think, and this is the sort of thing, the sort of people we want in office. All right, thanks for your time.